The great crystal halls of the Galactic Council had never seen such fear. Hyunwoo stood at the center of the massive chamber, his blue skin pale with worry. Around him, beings from across the galaxy whispered in dozens of languages. All spoke of the same thing, the end of everything they knew. The Devourer swarm had appeared 6 months ago. No one knew where they came from. They simply arrived at the edge of the galaxy and began eating. Not just planets or ships, but entire star systems. They consumed everything. Matter, energy, even space itself seemed to bend and break under their hunger. 17 systems were gone. Billions of beings had died. The greatest fleets in galactic history had attacked the Devourers and failed. The enemy learned from every battle, adapted to every weapon, and grew stronger with each victory. Sujin walked through the council chambers, her silver robes marking her as a senior ambassador. She had seen the reports from the front lines. The Devourers were not just destroying, they were studying. Every defense the galaxy created, the enemy found a way to break. Every new weapon was turned against its makers within days. The council members were scientists, philosophers, and artists. For 10,000 years, the galaxy had known peace. Wars were things of the ancient past. The great civilizations had learned to talk instead of fight, to create instead of destroy. It had made them wise and beautiful. It had also made them weak. Taeho walked into the chamber wearing a simple gray uniform. He was the Earth representative, though most council members had never heard of his planet. Earth was a small world in a quiet system, far from the great trade routes and cultural centers. The humans had only recently discovered faster-than-light travel and were still considered primitive by galactic standards, but primitive worlds sometimes knew things that advanced ones had forgotten. The situation is clear, Hyunwoo announced to the gathered council. Our fleets cannot stop the Devourers. Our weapons are useless against them. They adapt faster than we can create new defenses. In 3 months, they will reach the core worlds. In 6 months, our civilization will be extinct. Silence filled the chamber. These beings had built wonders across the galaxy. They had cured diseases, ended poverty, and created art that could make stars weep. But none of that mattered if they were all dead. There must be something we can do, said Councillor Vex, her crystalline body chiming with distress. Some technology we have not tried, some alliance we have not made. There is one option, Sujin said quietly. All eyes turned to her. We have studied the histories of every member species. Most of us evolved on peaceful worlds or learned peace early in our development. But there are a few species that developed differently. She activated a hologram showing a small blue planet, Earth. The humans evolved in constant warfare. They have been fighting each other for their entire recorded history. Their planet is a graveyard of failed civilizations, each destroyed by the next in an endless cycle of violence. Barbarians, muttered another counselor. What could such creatures offer us? Taeho stepped forward. He was not tall or imposing like many galactic species. His brown skin was unmarked by the decorative scars or biological modifications common among advanced beings. He looked ordinary, almost boring. We can offer you what you have forgotten how to do, he said in simple, clear words. We can offer you war. The council erupted in shocked whispers. War was an ancient concept, studied by historians but practiced by no one. Civilized beings did not wage war. Our preliminary studies of your species show remarkable adaptability to conflict, Sujin continued. Humans have survived ice ages, plagues, natural disasters, and most importantly, each other. You have never known a generation without some form of armed conflict somewhere on your planet. This is exactly what we need, Hyunwoo said, his voice growing stronger. The Devourers are a military problem. We need military solutions. We need beings who understand how to fight and how to win. Taeho smiled, and something about that smile made several counselors step back. It was not cruel or threatening, but it was the smile of someone who had seen terrible things and learned to find them useful. Counselor Hyunwoo is correct, Taeho said. This is a military problem, but you should understand what you are asking for. You want us to wage war against an enemy that has destroyed your greatest fleets. You want us to be violent in ways your species cannot imagine. You want us to be monsters. If that is what it takes to survive, Hyunwoo replied, then yes, we are asking you to be monsters. Taeho nodded slowly. Then you shall have monsters. But understand this, monsters are not heroes. Heroes save people and then go home. Monsters solve problems permanently. When we are done with the Devourers, they will not be defeated. They will be extinct. And extinction is forever. The council chamber fell silent again. These were beings who had spent thousands of years learning to preserve life, to find peaceful solutions, to build rather than destroy. The idea of complete extinction, of wiping out an entire species, was almost incomprehensible to them. "Is there no other way?" asked Councillor Vex. "There is always another way," Tejo said. "You could surrender. You could flee to another galaxy. You could hope the Devourers eventually stop eating and leave something alive. But if you want the threat ended, if you want to be safe, then you need us to do what we do best." "And what is that?" Sujin asked, though she feared the answer. "We kill things," Tejo said simply. "We kill them efficiently, completely, and permanently. We have been practicing for 10,000 years. We are very good at it." Hyunwoo looked around the chamber at the faces of the galaxy's leaders. Fear stared back at him from every species. Fear of the Devourers, and now fear of what they were about to unleash to stop them. "The vote is called," he announced. "All in favor of requesting military assistance from Earth?" Hands, claws, tentacles, and other appendages rose throughout the chamber. "Not all of them, but enough." "The motion passes," Hyunwoo said. "May the stars forgive us for what we are about to do." Tejo's smile grew wider. "The stars asked you for heroes, Counselor. But heroes are just what we call our monsters when we need them to fight for us." As the council session ended, and beings began to file out of the chamber, none of them noticed that Tejo was already speaking into a small communication device. The words he spoke were simple, but they would change the galaxy forever. "Earth Command, this is Representative Tejo. Authorization granted. Begin mobilization. Full war protocols. No restrictions." The galaxy had asked for salvation. It was about to discover what salvation looked like when delivered by monsters. The first human ships arrived at Kepler Station 3 days after the council vote. Sujin had expected a small fleet, perhaps a few hundred vessels carrying elite soldiers. What emerged from the jump points made her question everything she thought she knew about warfare. The human fleet numbered in the thousands. But these were not the sleek warships the galaxy was familiar with. These vessels were ugly, practical things that looked more like flying factories than military craft. They bristled with construction equipment, mining lasers, and manufacturing bays. Some ships were pulling asteroids behind them like metal moons. Admiral Ki Young stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, watching the alien station through cold eyes. He was a thin man with gray hair and scars on his hands from years of military service. When he spoke to the alien commanders, his voice was calm and professional. "Admiral, your fleet is larger than we expected," Councillor Vex said over the communication channel. Her crystalline form sparkled with nervous energy. "This is not our fleet," Ki Young replied. "This is our forward construction division. The fleet comes later." Before anyone could ask what that meant, the human ships began to work. They spread throughout the system like a swarm of mechanical insects. Mining ships attached themselves to asteroids and began cutting them apart. Factory ships started producing weapons, ammunition, and supplies at a rate that defied galactic understanding of manufacturing. Within 6 hours, the humans had built 3 orbital platforms and were working on a 4th. Within 12 hours, they had established supply lines, communication networks, and defensive positions that covered the entire system. "How is this possible?" Sujin whispered to her aide. "We have been studying logistics for centuries. This should take months to accomplish." Dayun walked through the alien observation deck wearing combat armor that looked like it had been built for function rather than appearance. She was young for a human military officer, but her eyes held the kind of hardness that came from seeing too much violence too early. "Your people think about war like a chess game," she explained to the gathered alien observers. "You move pieces carefully, plan each step, try to minimize losses. We think about war like a forest fire. We consume everything in our path and grow stronger as we burn." The aliens watched in growing unease as more human ships arrived. These were the actual warships, and they were even more disturbing than the construction vessels. They carried weapons that violated several galactic treaties on humanitarian warfare, biological agents, psychological warfare equipment, and devices designed not just to kill but to terrorize. Captain Jae-won stood in his engineering bay, surrounded by alien technology that his team had captured and reverse-engineered in less than 2 days. His engineers were young humans with wild eyes and dangerous smiles. They worked with the focused intensity of people solving an interesting puzzle. "The problem with your military thinking Jae-won explained to a group of alien military advisors, is that you still believe in rules. You think war has limits, boundaries, things you should not do? We learned a long time ago that war has only one rule: win. He gestured to a wall covered with schematics and weapon designs. Your people spent months trying to penetrate Devourer armor. My team cracked it in 6 hours. You know why? Because we did not try to find an elegant solution. We tried to find a solution that worked. The first test came when a Devourer scout fleet entered the system. The alien commanders expected a careful battle, with formations and tactics and minimal casualties. What they got was something closer to an execution. The human ships did not engage in formation flying or elegant maneuvers. They swarmed the Devourer vessels like angry wasps, attacking from every angle simultaneously. But worse than the violence was the efficiency. Every human weapon hit its target. Every tactical decision was made instantly and executed perfectly. Young Mi watched the battle from the science station, taking notes with the detached interest of someone studying an interesting biological specimen. She was Earth's leading expert on xenobiology, and she approached the Devourers like a research problem to be solved. Fascinating, she murmured as the alien commanders watched in horror. Look at how they try to adapt their shielding to our weapons. They are learning, but they are learning linearly. Human tactics are non-linear. We do not just adapt, we innovate. The Devourer ships began to retreat, but the humans did not let them go. They pursued the fleeing vessels with the relentless determination of predators chasing wounded prey. More disturbing, they did not simply destroy the enemy ships. They disabled them, captured them, and began studying them while the crews were still alive. Is this necessary? Soo-jin asked, watching human soldiers drag Devourer prisoners into research facilities. Everything is necessary, Da-eun replied. We need to understand how they think, how they communicate, how they feel pain. Knowledge is a weapon, and we use every weapon we have. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the Devourer scout fleet was completely destroyed. But the humans had also accomplished something the galaxy thought impossible. They had captured live Devourer specimens and intact technology. Kai Young stood in the command center, reviewing battle reports with the same calm professionalism he had shown before the fighting. Around him, human officers were already planning the next engagement, the next system to defend, the next enemy force to destroy. Your casualties? Hyunwoo asked over the communication link. 17 wounded, 2 killed, Ki Young replied. Against a force that destroyed 3 of our battle fleets? Your fleets tried to fight honorably, Ki Young said. Honor is a luxury we cannot afford. We fight to win, and we do whatever winning requires. The alien observers began to understand that they were watching something unprecedented. This was not just military efficiency. This was an entire civilization that had evolved to make war the way others made art or music. Every human decision was calculated to maximize damage to the enemy, while preserving human lives and resources. How do you coordinate so perfectly? Counselor Vex asked. Your ships move like they share a single mind. We do, Da-eun said simply. Every human learns to fight as part of a unit. We think together, act together, kill together. It is how we survived on our world, and it is how we will survive in yours. As the human fleet prepared to move to the next contested system, the alien commanders realized they had made a fundamental error in judgment. They had thought they were hiring soldiers. What they had actually done was unleash a war machine that had been building momentum for 10,000 years. Admiral, Soo-jin said quietly, what happens when the Devourers are defeated? Ki-young looked at her with those cold professional eyes. That depends, Ambassador. What happens to a war machine when it has no more wars to fight? He smiled, and like Taeho's smile back at the council, it was not cruel, but it was not entirely human either. I suppose we will have to find new enemies to fight. Or perhaps we will discover that we have been fighting the wrong enemy all along. The human fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind a system that was now more heavily fortified than most galactic core worlds. The aliens were safe, but safety had come with a price they were only beginning to understand. War was coming to the galaxy. But the Devourers might not be the only ones who needed to fear it. The Devourers learned quickly. Too quickly for the comfort of most species, but not quickly enough to surprise the humans. When the enemy adapted their tactics after the first defeat, Colonel Subin was ready with countermeasures that made the alien observers physically sick. Subin stood in the war room of the orbital command station, studying holographic displays of the approaching Devourer fleet. She was a small woman with sharp features and eyes that never seemed to blink. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who had made impossible decisions and lived with the consequences. They are using civilian evacuation routes as cover, she announced to the mixed human and alien command staff. They think we will not attack them if innocent lives are at risk. Surely you cannot target civilian ships, Counselor Vex protested. Her crystalline form was dim with distress. The evacuation vessels carry millions of refugees. Subin smiled the same cold smile that was becoming familiar to the alien observers. We are not targeting the civilian ships, Counselor. We are using them. The plan she outlined made several alien officers leave the room. Subin had turned the evacuation routes into a trap. Human ships disguised as refugee vessels would lead the Devourers into carefully prepared kill zones. The real civilian ships would be protected. But the enemy would not know which vessels were real and which were weapons until it was too late. Commander Wanho coordinated the deception from his stealth cruiser. He was a young officer with the calm demeanor of someone who had never questioned the necessity of what he did. Around him, his crew worked with the smooth efficiency of a machine designed for killing. The beauty of this tactic, Wanho explained to the alien military advisors, is that it teaches the enemy something important. It teaches them that mercy is a weakness they cannot afford. After today, they will kill every civilian ship they encounter just to be safe. That is monstrous, gasped Admiral Keth, a proud member of the Aquatic Republic. You are turning them into the very evil we fight against. No, Wanho replied calmly. We are forcing them to become like us. And once they become like us, we can predict them. Once we can predict them, we can destroy them. The trap worked perfectly. The Devourers attacked what they thought were evacuation ships and found themselves surrounded by human warships that appeared from stealth fields like ghosts becoming solid. But the humans did not simply destroy the enemy fleet. They broadcast everything across Devourer communication networks, ensuring every enemy unit could watch their comrades die in carefully orchestrated terror. Lieutenant Commander Ji Hai ran the Psychological Warfare Division. She was a quiet woman who spoke softly and studied enemy communications with the focused attention of a linguist. Her work was considered by many to be the most disturbing aspect of human warfare. Fear is a weapon like any other. She explained to a group of alien psychologists who had come to study human tactics, but it must be used precisely. Too little fear and the enemy ignores it. Too much fear and they become desperate. We want them afraid enough to make mistakes, but not afraid enough to fight with nothing to lose. Her broadcasts into Devourer networks were carefully crafted psychological attacks. She played recordings of dying Devourers, but only certain types of deaths. She showed captured enemy soldiers being dissected while still alive, but only after demonstrating human medical technology that could keep them conscious throughout the process. We are not torturing them for pleasure, Ji Hai said in response to alien protests. We are creating specific psychological responses. Fear of capture, fear of failure, fear of us. These fears will make them hesitant at critical moments. Hesitation in battle is death. The turning point came when Major Insu discovered something that changed everything. Insu was the intelligence officer who specialized in enemy behavioral analysis. He had spent weeks studying captured Devourer communications, looking for patterns that revealed how their collective intelligence worked. They are not really a swarm, he announced at the daily briefing. They are more like a single brain with many bodies. But here is the interesting part. They have never faced an enemy that fights with apparent randomness. They expect patterns because their own thinking is completely logical. This discovery led to what humans called chaos tactics. Instead of using predictable military strategies, human forces began acting in ways that seemed completely irrational. Ships would retreat when they should attack when they should defend, and sometimes do nothing when they should do something. Captain Nari specialized in these chaos operations. She was a former Special Forces officer who had learned to think like her enemies in order to defeat them. Her ship, the Soul's Revenge, became famous throughout the fleet for impossible victories against superior forces. The Devourers cannot understand us because they cannot predict us, she explained to new human recruits. They are trying to solve us like a mathematical equation. But humans are not math problems. We are chaos given form and purpose. Nari's greatest success came when she captured a Devourer command node intact. The operation took 3 days and required her to sacrifice 2 frigates as decoys, but the intelligence gained was beyond price. For the first time, humans had access to the complete Devourer command structure, fleet positions, and most importantly, their breeding grounds. The interrogation of the captured command node was conducted by specialists who had studied every form of information extraction known to human science. The alien observers were not allowed to witness the process, but they could hear the sounds through the station's walls. "What are they doing in there?" Sujin asked Da-un, who stood guard outside the interrogation facility. "They are asking questions." Dae-yun replied simply. "It sounds like screaming." "Yes, the Devourers are screaming the answers." When the interrogation was complete, humans had detailed maps of every Devourer position in the galaxy. They knew which systems contained breeding facilities, which held command centers, and which were merely feeding grounds. They also knew something else: the exact location of the Devourer home system. Admiral Ki-young stood before the combined human and alien command staff, displaying holographic star charts that showed the complete enemy order of battle. The information was so detailed that it included individual ship positions and commander profiles. This level of intelligence should be impossible to obtain, Hyunwoo said in amazement. "How did you make them tell you everything?" "We did not make them tell us," Ki-young replied. "We convinced them that telling us was the only way to make the pain stop. But pain, like fear, must be used precisely. We gave them hope that cooperation would end their suffering. Then we took that hope away, then we gave it back. Eventually, they told us everything to avoid losing hope again." The alien commanders realized they were witnessing something that violated every principle of civilized warfare. These humans did not just fight to win. They fought to break their enemies completely, to turn them into sources of information and psychological weapons against their own kind. "This is not warfare," Counselor Vex whispered. "This is systematic cruelty." "Yes," Ka-young agreed. "But it is effective systematic cruelty, and effectiveness is the only moral standard that matters in war." As the human fleet prepared for the next phase of operations, the alien observers began to understand that they had unleashed something far more dangerous than they had imagined. These humans did not just wage war, they had transformed war into an art form, and they were masters of their art. The Devourers had consumed 17 star systems through superior technology and adaptive tactics. But they had never faced an enemy that treated cruelty as a science, fear as a weapon, and mercy as a tactical consideration rather than a moral imperative. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when monsters stopped pretending to be heroes and began doing what they did best, turning their enemies into cautionary tales for anyone foolish, enough to threaten what they protected, and the humans were just getting started. General Taeho stood in the primary command center of Earth's newest orbital fortress, watching displays that showed every Devourer position in the galaxy. The captured intelligence had given humanity something no military force in galactic history had ever possessed: complete knowledge of their enemy's strength, location, and weaknesses. "Protocol genocide is authorized," he announced to the assembled fleet commanders. His voice was calm, professional, and utterly without emotion. "Begin simultaneous operations against all Devourer positions. No survivors. No exceptions." The alien observers had been moved to a separate facility for their own protection. What humanity was about to do would violate every treaty, convention, and moral principle that civilized species held sacred. But as Tai-Ho had warned the Galactic Council, they had asked for monsters, not heroes. Admiral Dong-hyun commanded the largest human fleet ever assembled. 3,000 warships, each carrying weapons that had been forbidden by galactic law for centuries: planet crackers that could shatter worlds, stellar manipulators that could turn stars into weapons, and bioweapons designed to target specific genetic sequences. "The Devourer home system will be our primary target," Dong-hyun announced to his fleet commanders. "We will not capture it. We will not occupy it. We will erase it from existence so completely that future generations will forget it ever existed." His flagship, the Inchen's Fury, carried the most terrible weapon in humanity's arsenal: a device that could trigger stellar collapse. It had been built in secret, tested on uninhabited systems, and refined until it could turn any star into a supernova with surgical precision. Commander Yoon-ji led the sterilization fleets. Her ships carried no prisoners, took no captives, and left nothing alive behind them. She was a woman who had spent her entire career studying the most efficient ways to eliminate entire species, and she approached the task with the calm professionalism of someone solving a technical problem. Sterilization is not the same as destruction, she explained to her officers. Destruction leaves ruins that can be rebuilt. Sterilization leaves nothing that can support life ever again. We are not just killing the devourers, we are making it impossible for anything like them to ever evolve again. Her weapons were works of art in their precision, molecular disruptors that broke down organic matter at the atomic level, quantum viruses that infected space-time itself, making entire regions of space uninhabitable, temporal bombs that erased targets from history, making it as if they had never existed at all. Captain Sang-wook ran the Psychological Warfare Division for the Genocide Campaign. His job was not to terrorize the enemy into surrender. Surrender was not an option. His job was to break their collective consciousness so completely that they would turn on themselves before human forces even arrived. The Devourers are a hive mind, he explained to his psychological warfare specialists. But every hive mind has fault lines, places where the collective consciousness is weak. We are going to find those fault lines and tear them apart. His broadcasts into Devourer networks were masterpieces of psychological destruction. He showed them visions of their own extinction, played backwards recordings of their own screams, and fed them information that made them doubt their own memories and perceptions. Within hours, Devourer forces across the galaxy began attacking each other. Convinced that their own allies had been replaced by human infiltrators, Dr. Haewon unveiled her greatest creation, a bioweapon that turned the Devourer's greatest strength into their ultimate weakness. The Devourers could adapt to any threat by evolving rapidly. Haewon's virus made them evolve continuously without stopping, until they consumed themselves in an endless cycle of improvement. They will try to adapt to the virus, she explained to a horrified gathering of alien scientists. But the virus adapts faster than they do. Every time they evolve a defense, the virus evolves a new attack. Eventually, they will evolve themselves out of existence. The virus was delivered by Colonel Seokjin's Special Forces. His soldiers were the elite of the elite, trained to operate behind enemy lines for months without support. They infiltrated Devourer breeding facilities and released the bioweapon into the reproductive systems of entire populations. The results were visible within days. Devourer drones began changing randomly, growing new organs they did not need, developing abilities that interfered with their basic functions. They evolved eyes that blinded them, claws that tore their own flesh, and communication organs that broadcast only screams. The galaxy watched in horror as humanity implemented the most efficient genocide campaign in recorded history. The Devourers did not die in glorious battles or heroic last stands. They died systematically, scientifically, with the same precision that humans applied to any problem they wanted to solve permanently. This is not war, Sujin whispered as she watched the reports coming in from across the galaxy. This is extermination. Yes, Taeho agreed. But it is humane extermination. We are ending their suffering as quickly and efficiently as possible. Is it not better to die quickly than to spend centuries being slowly consumed by an enemy you cannot defeat? The final assault on the Devourer home system was broadcast across the galaxy as a lesson to anyone else who might threaten the peace. Donghyun's fleet arrived to find a system already in chaos, its defenders turned against each other by psychological warfare and biological weapons. The humans did not land troops or engage in space battles. They simply activated their stellar manipulator and watched as the Devourer homestar began to collapse. The entire system was pulled into the forming black hole, erasing billions of years of evolution in minutes. When it was over, the Devourer swarm, a threat that had consumed 17 star systems and defeated the greatest fleets in galactic history, was extinct. Not defeated, not driven away, but completely and permanently removed from existence. The humans had accomplished in 3 weeks what the combined might of galactic civilization could not do in 6 months. They had saved the galaxy through the application of systematic, scientific cruelty that made their allies question whether the cure had been worse than the disease. It is finished, Taeho announced to the Galactic Council. The Devourer threat has been eliminated. Your people are safe. At what cost? Hyunwoo asked. At the cost of our innocence, Taeho replied. You asked us to be monsters, and we became monsters. You asked us to save you, and we have saved you. But salvation through monsters comes with a price that you are only beginning to understand. As the human fleets regrouped and began establishing permanent bases throughout the galaxy, the alien species realized that they had traded one existential threat for another. The Devourers had wanted to consume them. The humans, it seemed, wanted something far more dangerous. They wanted to protect them. And as any student of history could tell you, there was nothing more dangerous than being protected by monsters who had forgotten how to stop being monstrous. The galaxy was safe. But safety, the aliens were learning, was not always the same thing as freedom. 6 months after the last Devourer died, the galaxy celebrated its survival with festivals of light that could be seen from orbit. Every world held ceremonies honoring the heroes who had saved them from extinction. But the humans were not invited to these celebrations. They were too busy building. Admiral Ki Young stood on the observation deck of humanity's newest orbital facility, watching construction ships build defensive platforms around the Vorthak homeworld. The crystalline beings had not requested these defenses. They had not been consulted about their placement, but they were being built anyway for their own protection. Locals are concerned about our presence, reported Captain Nari. They say the defensive platforms look more like weapons, aimed at their planet than shields protecting it. Ki Young smiled the same, cold smile that had become the signature of human officers. Defensive platforms and orbital bombardment systems use very similar technology. The difference is mostly a matter of which direction they are pointed. Down on the planet's surface, the Vorthak watched human soldiers patrol their cities with growing unease. The humans called them peacekeepers and security advisors, but they carried weapons that could level buildings and armor that made them look like walking tanks, General. Dong Hyun had established what humans called galactic protection zones around every major star system. These zones were patrolled by human fleets that had the authority to stop, search, and interrogate any vessel that entered their territory. They claimed it was to prevent another invasion like the Devourers, but the aliens noticed that the humans seemed very interested in their technology and trade routes. "We are grateful for your protection," Counselor Vex said during one of the increasingly tense diplomatic meetings. "But surely such extensive security measures are no longer necessary. The Devourer threat has been eliminated." "The Devourer threat was eliminated," agreed General Tae-ho. "But threats to galactic security come in many forms. Pirates, smugglers, potential terrorists, species that might develop dangerous technologies without proper oversight. The galaxy is a dangerous place, Counselor. It needs protection." What the aliens were slowly discovering was that humans had a very different understanding of the word protection than other species. To most galactic civilizations, protection meant being defended from outside threats. To humans, protection meant being controlled completely enough that threats could never develop in the first place. Colonel Subin now ran what humans called the Cultural Integration Program. On the surface, it seemed like a peaceful effort to help different species work together more efficiently. In practice, it was a systematic program to reshape galactic civilization according to human preferences. Conflict arises from misunderstanding, Subin explained to a gathering of alien cultural leaders. Different species have different values, different priorities, different ways of thinking. These differences create friction, and friction creates conflict. The solution is to minimize differences. The program started small. Humans offered to help resolve trade disputes, mediate territorial disagreements, and provide security for important diplomatic meetings. But somehow, every problem they solved left human officials in positions of greater authority and alien governments more dependent on human assistance. Commander Wanho managed the economic aspects of galactic integration. His teams of financial experts spread throughout the galaxy, offering advice on trade efficiency, resource management, and economic optimization. Their suggestions always seemed to benefit human interests, but they were presented so skillfully that alien leaders often thought the ideas were their own. "Economics is just warfare by other means," Wanho explained to his staff. "Instead of destroying our enemies, we make them dependent on us. Instead of conquering their worlds, we make them need our protection. Instead of ruling them directly, we make them grateful to be ruled." The transformation was subtle but relentless. Human advisors appeared in alien governments. Human peacekeepers patrolled alien space. Human cultural exchange programs educated alien children in human schools, where they learned human values and human ways of thinking. Dr. Young Mi ran the education programs. She was still the same quiet scientist who had studied devourer biology, but now she applied the same analytical skills to understanding and reshaping alien cultures. Education is the most powerful weapon we possess, she told her team of human teachers. A generation educated in human schools will think like humans, value what humans value, and see the galaxy through human eyes. They will not rebel against human authority, because they will not see it as foreign authority. They will see it as the natural order of things. The alien governments began to express concerns about human activities, but they found themselves in an impossible position. Every time they tried to assert independence, some crisis would arise that required human assistance. Pirates would attack shipping lanes that humans had to patrol. Technical problems would develop in systems that only humans could fix. Diplomatic disputes would emerge that human mediators had to resolve. It is almost as if these problems are designed to keep us dependent, Su Jin observed during a private meeting with other alien diplomats. That is because they are, replied a Nereid intelligence officer who had been investigating human activities. We have evidence that many of these crises are artificially created by human covert operations. They create problems so they can solve them, and each solution gives them more control. When Counselor Hyun Woo finally confronted General Tae Ho about these concerns, the human leader's response was both honest and terrifying. You are correct, Counselor, Tae Ho said calmly. We are systematically assuming control of galactic civilization. We are doing this for your own protection. Protection from what? Hyunwoo demanded. The Devourers are extinct. Protection from yourselves, Tae Ho replied. Your species spent thousands of years building a peaceful, cooperative civilization. It was beautiful, noble, and completely helpless when faced with a real threat. You nearly went extinct because you had forgotten how to fight, how to make hard choices, how to do what survival requires. He gestured to a holographic display showing human fleets patrolling every major star system in the galaxy. We will not let you forget again. We will not let you become weak again. We will protect you from the dangers you cannot see, the threats you cannot imagine, and most importantly, from your own tendency to choose peace over survival. You are saying you will protect us whether we want protection or not. Yes, Tae Ho said simply. Because protection is not something you can choose to refuse. Protection is something that exists or does not exist, and we have decided that it will exist. The final confirmation of what the galaxy had become came when a group of systems attempted to form an independence coalition. They wanted to establish a region of space free from human oversight, where species could govern themselves according to their own values. The human response was swift and decisive. Admiral Dong Hyun's fleet surrounded the rebellious systems within hours. No shots were fired, no threats were made, but the message was clear. Independence was not an option. We do not want to rule you, Tae Ho explained to the coalition leaders. We want to protect you, but protection requires control, and control requires obedience. These are not choices you can make. These are facts of survival. The galaxy had asked the stars for heroes to save them from the Devourers. Earth had given them monsters who had done exactly what was asked. But monsters, by their very nature, did not simply disappear when the immediate threat was over. Monsters evolved. They adapted. They found new purposes for their monstrous abilities. The galaxy was safe from external threats. The humans would make sure of that. But safety had come with a price that few had understood when they agreed to pay it. The price was freedom. The price was independence. The price was the right to make their own mistakes and face their own consequences. The humans had saved galactic civilization by taking control of it. They had protected it by making it impossible for it to protect itself. They had rescued it by making rescue unnecessary because there would never again be anything to be rescued from. The galaxy had asked for heroes and received monsters. Now it would spend the rest of its existence learning the difference between salvation and conquest, between protection and control, between being saved and being owned. And deep in their hearts, the humans knew something that they would never tell their galactic protectorates. They had not saved the galaxy in spite of being monsters. They had saved the galaxy because they were monsters. And monsters, once awakened, very rarely went back to sleep.